Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving deep into women's mental health today
Oh, absolutely.
and using this article we have here
Okay.
to help us kind of get into some of the nuances and
Yeah.
really understand what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a big topic for sure.
It is.
It is.
For sure.
The article kind of jumps right in
Okay.
and starts talking about some of the unique pressures that women face.
Right.
And so it's everything from societal expectations
Yeah.
to juggling everything to, the media and these impossible beauty standards.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's no wonder that so many women feel like they're not good enough.
And that can really be a breeding ground for anxiety and depression.
Right.
Which the article points out women statistically experience at higher rates than men do.
Yeah.
And it's this mix of biological, psychological, and social factors
Right.
that kind of create this perfect storm of vulnerability.
Yeah, and they talk about postpartum depression in here.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that people hear a lot about but don't really understand.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people hear baby blues and think it's the same thing.
Right.
But the article really makes a clear distinction between the two.
Yeah, baby blues is very common. Pretty much everyone gets it
Okay.
to some extent after childbirth.
So that's normal.
And it usually fades pretty quickly.
Okay.
But postpartum depression is more intense
Right.
and lasts much longer.
And can even have really serious consequences.
Absolutely. And very often requires professional help to really kind of get through it.
Yeah, 1 in 7 new mothers
That's a lot.
experience this.
Yeah,
So
that's huge.
It's a big deal. And then they even talk about postpartum anxiety and OCD.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Postpartum can manifest in a lot of ways.
yeah, so it's not just depression.
It's a whole spectrum.
Yeah, so knowing the signs and getting support early on is so important.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this leads me perfectly to something that really caught my attention
Okay.
when I was reading the article.
Yeah.
And it's that they talk about hormones quite a bit.
Hormones, yeah.
It's not just a joke.
Not all.
These hormonal shifts can really impact mental well-being.
It's a huge factor, actually.
So can you break it down for us?
Sure.
Like, how do these hormonal changes during menstruation, pregnancy, and menopause
Oh, wow. Yeah.
actually affect a woman's mental state?
Okay, well, let's start with menstruation.
Right.
During your period, your estrogen and progesterone levels fluctuate.
Right.
And for a lot of women, this can trigger, irritability, mood swings, and even depressive symptoms.
Yeah.
And then you've got pregnancy, right?
Yeah.
Which just throws this whole other hormonal cocktail into the mix.
Right.
And it can really impact your mental state.
Okay.
And then there's menopause,
Oh, yeah.
which is a whole other chapter.
Right. It's like the culmination of everything
It is.
that we've been talking about, right?
Estrogen declines significantly during menopause. And this can lead to all sorts of things like anxiety, sleep disturbances, hot flashes, and those lovely mood swings.
Fun.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with.
Yes. So,
But understanding these hormonal influences can really help us,
yeah.
support the women in our lives better.
For sure.
Because if you know what they're going through,
Yeah.
you can be more understanding and patient.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
And just be there for them.
I think a lot of times we just don't understand.
Oh, that's true.
And so it's easy to dismiss it
Right?
as just being, moody or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, there are real things happening.
There really are.
Neurological changes.
They're causing these mental and emotional changes.
Absolutely. So
Oh.
it's important to remember that
Yeah.
it's not just in their heads, it's real.
Okay, so
Yeah.
while we're on the topic of things that can really affect a woman's mental health.
The article uses this phrase that really stuck with me.
Okay, I'm curious.
The intersection of trauma and resilience.
Oh, yeah.
And I found that really powerful.
Yeah, that's a good word.
So can you unpack that for us a little bit?
Sure.
Like, what's the connection between trauma and mental health in women?
Well, the article goes on to discuss
Yeah.
how experiences like domestic violence and sexual assault can have a deep and lasting impact on a woman's mental well-being.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are traumatic events that can leave you feeling vulnerable, unsafe, and really struggling to regain a sense of control over your life and emotions.
And it goes even deeper than that, right?
It does.
There's a quote in here from Bessel van der Kolk
I love it.
that I think really captures the depth of this impact.
Okay, let's hear it.
He says, trauma doesn't just happen to us, it happens in us.
Wow.
So it's like,
powerful.
it's not just an event that happened,
It changes you.
but it becomes a part of who you are.
It does. It really does.
In a way.
Trauma can change the way your brain functions,
Right.
the way you respond to stress, the way you relate to others.
It's profound.
Yeah.
It can lead to anxiety, depression, even PTSD
Oh,
in
absolutely.
women who have experienced trauma.
Yeah, it's very common.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that trauma isn't always something big and obvious.
Yeah.
It can be a series of small events
Right.
that build up over time.
They chip away at your well-being.
Chip away.
Yeah, so this is all pretty heavy stuff.
It is.
But what I found so inspiring
Pretty good.
about this article is that it doesn't dwell solely on the negative.
Yeah.
It also highlights the incredible resilience of women,
Right.
their strength to heal,
Right.
and their ability to find meaning
That's the good stuff.
even after experiencing something so terrible.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, women are amazing, right?
Yes.
They're so strong and resilient.
It's like a beacon of hope in all of this
It really is.
darkness.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that it's easy
Of course not.
or that women should just be expected to bounce back.
Right.
It's that
Healing takes time.
there's this inner strength
Yeah.
that allows them to
Absolutely.
move forward.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It really is.
So I guess that's where things like support systems
Yes.
and therapy
Yeah.
and community resources really come into play.
Absolutely. Those things are so important.
Yeah.
Having a safe space to process these experiences, to develop coping mechanisms, and to rebuild that sense of self and agency.
Right.
It's crucial for healing and growth.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway here is that
Yeah.
you don't have to go through this alone.
That's so important to remember.
Yeah.
You don't have to suffer in silence.
And there is hope.
There really is.
And there's help available if you need it.
Yes.
So I think this understanding of the challenges that women face really underscores the importance of self-care, which the article really emphasizes.
Yeah.
It's a crucial element in maintaining mental well-being.
It's the foundation, really.
It is.
Yeah, if you don't take care of yourself,
Right.
it's hard to do anything else.
Exactly. And they even go so far as to provide some really specific examples of what this looks like.
Okay.
So they talk about things like mindfulness practices,
Yeah.
stress management techniques, and nurturing healthy relationships.
All those good things.
So
Yeah.
it's not just about saying take care of yourself.
Right.
It's like, here are some things you can do.
Yeah.
Here are some actual things
Practical tips.
that you can incorporate into your life.
Love it.
Yeah. And I think we need to kind of shift gears a little bit here
Okay.
and talk about another crucial point
Okay.
that the article makes.
Yeah.
And that is breaking the stigma surrounding mental health.
That's a big one.
It is.
Yeah.
And the article really argues that this stigma is one of the major things
Yeah, no kidding.
that's preventing women from seeking help.
It's like this invisible wall of shame and silence.
Right. And it's so pervasive.
It is. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So what do we do about it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
But the article does offer some solutions.
Okay.
It suggests creating a more open and understanding environment where
Yeah.
people feel safe to talk about their struggle
Okay.
without fear of judgment.
So how do we do that?
Well, it starts with education.
Right.
We need to educate ourselves and others about mental health.
Okay.
We need to challenge those harmful stereotypes and misconceptions
Right.
that fuel the stigma.
Like the idea that mental illness is a sign of weakness.
Exactly. Or that people with mental health issues are dangerous or unpredictable.
Right. Or that it's something to be ashamed of.
Yeah, all of that needs to go.
Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
need to create a culture where it's okay to not be okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
So that starts with each of us. It does.
You know, being open about our own struggles,
Yeah.
reaching out for help when we need it, and supporting others who are struggling.
Yeah. And the article also encourages women to share their stories.
Oh, that's so important.
Because when we share our experiences, we not only connect with others
Right.
who might be going through similar challenges,
Exactly.
but we also help to break down those harmful stereotypes.
Absolutely. It normalizes the conversation.
Yes.
And makes it easier for others to come forward.
Yeah. And it shows that you're not alone.
Exactly.
Right.
You're not broken.
Yeah.
You're not a failure.
You're not weak.
You're human.
Yes. And you're not alone.
And you deserve support.
So this idea of sharing stories and normalizing the conversation really ties into the article's call for collaboration.
It does. It really does.
And they talk about healthcare providers and policymakers and advocacy groups and communities all working together to amplify women's voices and advocate for better mental health resources and support.
It's going to take all of us
It is.
to make a real difference.
Yeah.
We need to work together.
Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say.
That's right.
So for anyone listening
Yeah.
who's feeling lost or alone in their struggle,
Right.
the article provides a really helpful roadmap of support services
Okay, I'm glad.
that are available both locally and nationally.
That's great.
So they talk about community mental health centers, women's health clinics, nonprofits, support groups, online platforms,
Yeah.
helplines. There are so many options out there.
It's good to know those resources are there.
Right, and I think it's important to emphasize
Sure.
that reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness.
Absolutely not.
It's a sign of strength.
It is. It really is.
It's about taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing that you don't have to go through this alone.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up this section, I want to touch on a point that the article makes
Okay.
about embracing diversity
Mm-hmm.
and intersectionality.
Oh, yeah. That's crucial.
It argues that women's experiences are not monolithic.
Absolutely.
Their mental health is shaped by a complex interplay of factors,
Yeah.
including race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status,
Yeah.
sexual orientation.
That's like a tapestry of
It is.
different experiences.
It's like all these different factors
Yeah.
add a layer
Absolutely.
to a woman's life
Each layer adds complexity
Yeah.
and nuance.
and creates a really unique set of
It does.
experiences and challenges.
Yeah, it's important to remember that.
So
Yeah.
this means that support services really need to be culturally sensitive and inclusive.
Couldn't agree more.
We need to ensure that every woman
Yeah.
feels seen,
Right.
heard, and understood,
Absolutely. That's the goal.
regardless of her background
Yeah.
or her identity.
Representation matters.
It does.
And it makes a difference.
It really does.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of leads us into the
Okay.
final point the article makes,
Yeah.
which is about the importance of education.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is.
Yeah.
And they talk about
Yeah.
the need for workshops and seminars and educational materials
I love that.
to help spread awareness
Yeah.
and understanding of mental health.
We need more of that.
We do.
Sure.
They also talk about the importance of collaborating with healthcare providers
Oh, absolutely.
to ensure that
Yeah.
women are getting the care that they need.
Yeah, that connection is crucial.
It is.
Yeah,
So knowledge is power.
it really is. Right.
The more we understand, the more we can support ourselves
Absolutely.
and the women in our lives.
Couldn't agree more.
So I think that's a great place to kind of
Yeah.
wrap up this part of our discussion.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We've really dived deep.
but I think it's important to emphasize
Yeah.
that this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It is. There's so much more to explore.
There's so much more to learn
Absolutely.
and so much more to talk about.
Yeah, this is a conversation that needs to continue.
It does.
For sure.
So we'll be back soon
Okay.
to continue this deep dive
Looking forward to...
into women's mental health.
Yeah, me too.
But until then,
Okay.
we encourage you to keep learning, keep growing,
Yeah,
and keep supporting each other.
absolutely.
We're all in this together,
We are. We really are.
and we can make a difference.
I believe that.
So until next time,
Okay.
take care.
You too.
And be well.
And be kind to yourself and others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting how much emphasis the article puts on education
Yeah.
when it comes to women's mental health.
Right.
And it's not just about like
Yeah.
knowing where to go for help or what the resources are.
Right.
It's also about understanding mental health in general.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Like, how can we really advocate for something that we don't even fully understand ourselves?
Exactly. You know, it's about recognizing the signs and symptoms,
Yeah.
understanding the different conditions, and kind of demystifying the whole thing.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, and the article talks about the need for like workshops and seminars and educational materials
Yeah.
to really help women understand what they might be going through.
Right.
Because knowledge is power, right?
It is.
When you understand something,
Yeah.
it's a lot less scary and intimidating,
Absolutely.
and you can advocate for yourself better.
That's a really good point.
And then there's the whole issue of stigma, which the article talks about a lot.
Oh, yeah. The stigma is huge.
It's pervasive,
Yeah.
and it's one of the biggest barriers that prevents women from seeking help.
Yeah. Even with everything we talk about nowadays, with mental health awareness and stuff,
Right. It's still there.
the stigma's still so strong.
It is ingrained in our culture.
Yeah. And it makes you feel like you have to hide.
It does. It makes you feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Like you're weak or flawed.
Right. And you're afraid of what people will think
Exact.
if they find out.
Yeah, it can impact your relationships, your career,
Everything.
everything.
Yeah. And the article talks about how we need to create a more open
Yes.
and supportive environment
Yeah.
where women feel safe to talk about their struggles.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Creating that safe space.
But that's easier said than done, right?
It is. It's a big task.
Yeah.
But it starts with small steps.
Okay.
You know, having conversations with our friends and family,
Yeah.
being open about our own experiences, and supporting others who are struggling.
So it's kind of like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It starts with each of us.
I like that.
And it spreads outwards.
So it's not just about advocating for systemic change. It's also about creating these little pockets of support.
Absolutely, it's both.
Okay.
You need the systemic change,
Yeah.
but you also need that individual support.
Right. And the article talks about the need for diverse and inclusive approaches
Oh, yeah.
to mental health care.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Because women's experiences are not monolithic.
Right.
You can't treat everyone the same.
Right, because everyone's coming from such a different place.
Exactly. We all have different backgrounds,
Well,
different identities,
Yeah.
different experiences.
Yeah, the article uses the term
Yes.
intersectional
It's
perspectives
a good one.
to highlight this idea
Mm-hmm.
that a woman's mental health is influenced
Right.
not just by her gender,
Of course not.
but by all these other aspects of her identity.
Absolutely. It's everything.
So it's really complex.
It is. It's very nuanced.
Yeah, and we need to make sure that our approaches to mental health care
Yeah.
are equally diverse and nuanced.
Couldn't agree more.
We need to create support systems that are as diverse
Absolutely.
as the women they serve.
And that means being sensitive to cultural differences, addressing systemic barriers,
Yeah.
and making sure that mental health services
Yeah.
are accessible to everyone,
That's a good point.
regardless of their background or identity.
Yeah, because access is a huge issue
That is.
for a lot of women.
Absolutely. Not everyone has equal access.
Yeah, and the article talks about the importance of women supporting each other.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is so crucial
It is. It's so powerful.
because
Yeah.
sometimes the best support you can get
Mm-hmm.
is from someone who really understands,
Absolutely. Someone who's been there,
Yeah.
someone who gets it.
like they've been in your shoes.
Exactly.
And the article talks about the importance of mentorship
Yeah.
and sisterhood and creating these communities of support.
It's about creating a space
Yeah.
where you feel seen and heard,
Yeah.
where you can be vulnerable without judgment.
And know that you're not alone.
Exactly. That's the key.
Yeah, and the article gives some really great examples
Oh, I like that.
of how women can support each other.
Okay.
Things like checking in on your friends,
Mm-hmm.
offering to help with childcare or errands,
Yeah.
just listening.
Being there.
Yeah, sometimes just being present.
It's the little things
Yeah.
that make a big difference.
It is.
And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do
Yeah.
is just say, I see you, I hear you, and you're not alone.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's so powerful
it is.
because sometimes that's all you need to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the article wraps up by talking about advocacy.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Is
You know, we can't just focus on individual support.
right.
We also need to advocate for systemic change.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Because the article really emphasizes the societal factors
Yes.
that contribute to women's mental health challenges.
It's not just about individual choices. It's about the systems that we live in.
Yeah, and how those systems can
Right.
create these barriers
Absolutely.
and make it harder for women to thrive.
It's about looking at the bigger picture
Yes.
and addressing the root causes of these disparities.
So it's like instead of just saying, hey, ladies, practice self-care,
Right.
which is important,
It is important, but
Yeah.
it's not enough.
it's not enough.
No, we need to go deeper.
Yeah.
We need to look at the systems.
Right, and how those systems
Yeah.
are impacting women
Absolutely.
in a negative way.
And change them.
Yeah, so the article talks about things like gender norms and workplace policies
Yes.
and access to affordable health care
All of that.
and representation in media.
It all matters.
Yeah, it's like all these things
Yeah.
play a role
They all
in shaping women's mental well-being.
Absolutely. It's interconnected.
It is.
Definitely.
So it's like this multi-pronged approach
Exactly.
that we need to take.
It's individual and collective.
Yeah, it's both.
We all have a role to play.
Right, and it's going to require all of us to step up
Yeah.
and do our part.
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
I think this has been a really incredible
Yeah.
and thought-provoking discussion.
It has.
We've explored so much.
Yeah.
We've talked about the unique challenges that women face. We've celebrated their resilience.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Their strength is incredible.
We've talked about the importance
Yeah.
of self-care and support systems,
Absolutely.
and even touched on the need for systemic change.
That's the big one.
It is.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up this section,
Okay.
I think it's important to emphasize
Yeah.
the power of knowledge,
Oh, yeah.
the importance of open dialogue, and the incredible potential for healing
Yes.
and growth.
That's what it's all about.
It is.
Yeah.
It's amazing how this article manages to balance the seriousness of these mental health issues with this feeling of hope.
I know, right?
Like it doesn't shy away from the challenges,
Nope.
but It also reminds you about how strong women are.
Yeah. And that healing and growth are possible.
Like we can be vulnerable and powerful
Absolutely.
at the same time.
You don't have to choose.
Yeah, and it makes you realize you're not the only one going through this.
Exactly. There's a whole community of women out there who get it.
It's like a sisterhood.
It is.
Yeah, and that really ties into what the article says about how important connection and support are.
Couldn't agree more.
It talks about how women can support each other.
Yeah. Whether it's through mentorship or just creating a safe space to share experiences.
Right. Just knowing you're not alone can make a huge difference.
It really can.
It's a powerful thing.
It is.
So to wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to bring it back to something we talked about earlier. Individual action versus collective action.
Right. Both are important.
So what steps can we take,
Yeah.
both personally and as a society,
That's the question.
to create real and lasting change in women's mental health?
I think on a personal level, it starts with prioritizing our own mental health.
Yeah, taking care of ourselves.
Exactly. And not being afraid to seek help when we need it.
And challenging the stigma in our own lives.
Absolutely. Starting those conversations.
Yeah, and on a bigger scale, we need to advocate for policies that support women's mental well-being.
Yes. And support organizations that are already doing great work.
Right, and keep raising awareness about these issues.
Keep talking about it.
Yeah, because it's not just a women's issue.
It's everyone's issue.
Right, when women thrive.
Everyone benefits.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
It really has.
Thank you so much for being here.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us.
Keep learning and growing.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive.
Until then.
Take care and be well.